Welcome back to the channel, back with another video. The NBA, once a symbol of grit, passion, and raw talent, faces criticism for losing its edge. With declining TV ratings and an increasing sense of detachment among fans, many are asking what happened to the NBA. One viral argument claims the root of the problem lies in the sport's evolution from a working-class pipeline to an elite upper-middle-class enterprise. The shift, critics say, has not only hurt the game's competitiveness, but has also marginalized the very communities that built its legacy, particularly low-income Black communities. This report will explore the reasons behind this shift, its implications for basketball culture, and the lessons the NBA and its supporters should take away from the issue.
Everybody been talking about how the NBA fell off, the ratings is way down, it's boring to watch, and largely I agree with that. But nobody breaking down why and how this happened. And I talked about it and broke it down on Twitter, and it went viral. So I'm gonna break it down on TikTok on how and why the NBA fell off. So there's many reasons why the NBA is losing interest, but the number one reason, in my opinion, is because basketball has unofficially become a upper middle class or rich person sport. Let me break it down. So it costs anywhere between $30 to $100 per hour to get a kid training for basketball. And to play on the AAU team, it costs anywhere from $300 to $1,000 to be on the team, and that's without travel, gas, food, hotels, new shoes, all of that stuff. And today, if a kid isn't getting trained around the clock all year with basketball, they practically have no chance of making the NBA, even if they're really good and got the height and all that. And the average American parent doesn't have the funds or the time available to invest into developing their kid. Now, some people will counter argue that point and say, well, the best of the best kids, they don't have to pay to be on these teams. They get these things for free, right? That's what a lot of people would say and think. But the issue with that argument is, historically, some of the greatest players in the history of the game were late bloomers. They weren't that good at 12, 13, 14, 15. A lot of times, they're not even that good at 16. And in today's game, some of those kids that would be late bloomers in today's league, they're not making it because that development is stopping because they don't, like I said, they don't have those resources or funds to continue developing their interest in the game. And this is a huge issue because historically, the NBA was made from players that come from low-income backgrounds. The LeBrons, the Iversons, the Wilt Chamberlains, Isaiah Thomas, KD, D-Wade, D-Rose, KG, Harden, Kareem, even the ones that came from two-parent households, like Magic Johnson, who talks about how he grew up poor. Michael Jordan's father was a textile mill worker in the 70s and 80s, which they didn't make a lot of money at all. The Shaqs, Westbrook, Jimmy Butler, I could go on and on and on. And the reason for this is because typically when people come from low-income backgrounds, when it comes to sports, they play with a hunger, a drive, a passion and flair that usually comes from not having much. And with the game being so expensive to play now, today's NBA is mostly filled with players that came from upper middle class or well-to-do families. And that's why it comes across as so uncompetitive or passionless, I should say, is because these players they don't play with that same fire that people play from when they come from nothing. And the proof is in the pudding. There was a recent study done about players in the NBA, and what they discovered was almost 50% of today's NBA players are related to former professional athletes or Division I athletes. And the problem is that there's so much money in youth basketball now that the system is not ever going to change, so it's going to remain this way. And the craziest part about this is it isn't new. It's being brought to the light more now, but this isn't a new phenomenon. Most people don't know that since 1999, the NBA lost nearly 50% of its audience after Michael Jordan retired from the Bulls, obviously. See, the thing with the NBA and why the NFL, in America at least, will always be king is the NBA is everything is based on the players. And the NFL is based on the shield and the teams. In the NFL, the fans, they're going to root for their teams no matter what. They don't care how many trades happen. If the team is terrible, if they're good, they're going to remain fans of that team. Meanwhile, in the NBA, generally speaking, today's fan is only rooting for the players. When the players switch and change teams, they're changing their fandom for the team that they was rooting for. And when Michael Jordan played, he became so big and popular that he became bigger than the game. And when he retired, the NBA failed to ever fully replace him. Also added to the fact that the average NBA game today, after you pay for parking, food, and whatever extra fees you got to pay for, it's going to be around $200. And most of the games are not shown on national television. So the average fan today, they can't afford to support or develop their interest in the game. And the thing is, the league is making more money than ever due to TV deals. So a lot of people, they just ignoring the problem right now because they're making so much money. But the thing is, this isn't sustainable. And if they don't change it, the contracts that the players get, they'll start to get smaller and smaller. Which is why, in my opinion, and I can't believe I'm saying this because I've been a diehard NBA fan all my life. Since I was 2-3 years old, all I can remember is watching the NBA. So it's amazing that it even comes to this point. But at this rate, in my opinion at least, I really believe the NBA will be irrelevant in America, just in America, within the next 15 years. And when I say irrelevant, I'm not talking about the diehard fans, because the diehard fans, they always going to support no matter what's going on. But I'm specifically talking about irrelevant to the people that are on the fence, or they're just average fans, which is majority of basketball watchers. They're average fans. I believe the game will become irrelevant to them, and some may argue it already is. And if you don't believe me, ask the average NBA or basketball fan who was the #1 pick in the draft this year. Most people, even NBA fans, don't have a clue. Now name another period of time where NBA fans didn't know who the #1 pick was. Or not even only that, they didn't care to watch and to find out, is the #1 pick good or not? This has never happened before. The NBA is in trouble. And some people going to say the NBA, how can you say that it's the best that it's ever been as far as talent? And I would agree with that. Especially when it comes to international play. You got SGA, you got Giannis, Joker, Luka, Wemby, and who I think probably going to end up being the greatest player of all time, and so many more. But the problem is the average American, we not intrigued or interested by the European or overseas athletes. And it's because we're not familiar with their story or background. To us, when they get to the NBA, this is our first time for most of us ever hearing or seeing them. Compared to the other stars of the past, we seen these people from high school. We might have heard of them when they was in 7th, 8th grade. This might be our first time hearing them coming up on the scene. We started hearing of LeBron when he was 15, 16 years old. We saw KD in college. We saw D Rose in college. Michael Jordan was an All-American. So these stories, they were brewing, and they was programming us to be accustomed and to being used to these people and these names and these games. Where nowadays, no matter how good these overseas players are, when they come to the league, like I said, we don't know who the hell these people are. And if we don't know them, we can't be interested in the story in the game.
Historically, basketball was seen as one of the most accessible sports for children from low-income households. All it required was a ball, a hoop, and a drive to compete. But in today's era of youth sports commercialization, access to basketball's elite ranks is no longer that simple. The rise of AAU, Amateur Athletic Union basketball, now considered a crucial pathway to the NBA, comes with hefty costs. Registration fees for AAU teams range from $300 to $1,000 per season, excluding travel, lodging, food, and new gear. Moreover, private trainers charge anywhere from $30 to $100 per hour. Parents unable to afford this pay-to-play model risk their children falling behind in development. As a result, late bloomers, once staples of NBA success stories, are left behind. Many NBA legends, such as Michael Jordan, Jimmy Butler, and Allen Iverson, weren't high-profile stars as teens. If they had come up in today's system, it's unlikely they would have made it to the league. For decades, basketball served as a beacon of hope for young boys and girls growing up in low-income black communities. The rags to riches story was embodied by stars like LeBron James, Kevin Garnett, and Dwayne Wade, who channeled their struggles into greatness on the court. However, as basketball becomes more of a financial investment than a passion-fueled pursuit, fewer kids from these communities are making it to the NBA. This shift could have deeper social consequences. Sports are often seen as a pathway out of poverty, offering scholarships, mentorship, and opportunities to escape difficult environments. If access to basketball's highest levels requires wealth, those life-changing opportunities shrink for low-income youth. Some critics point to the larger gentrification of youth sports as part of a broader trend. Other sports like soccer, tennis, and hockey have long had paywalls, but basketball was supposed to be different. Its appeal was its accessibility. Now, with elite development tied to expensive programs, it mirrors the exclusivity of those other sports. There's a growing sentiment that the NBA's product on the court has become boring or passionless. The viral analysis points to an important link. Players who grow up in privilege may not play with the same hunger as those who come from poverty. Basketball greats like Kevin Garnett and Russell Westbrook played with a visible edge fueled by personal struggle. Fans connected with their backstories and saw their battles on the court as reflections of their off-court experiences. Today, nearly 50% of NBA players are children of former professional or Division I athletes, according to a recent study. While this doesn't necessarily diminish their skill, it may explain the perceived lack of intensity. This shift in the sport's socioeconomic makeup also impacts how fans connect with players. Now, in the past, NBA stars like LeBron James or Derrick Rose had their stories told from high school onward. They were household names before entering the league, but today's influx of international talent like Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Victor Wembanyama lacks that visibility for American audiences. As a result, fans may not feel the same connection to these players. It's important to note that, from a financial perspective, the NBA has never been more profitable. Multi-billion-dollar TV contracts with ESPN and TNT have allowed the league to turn record profits. This wealth has made the league complacent in addressing concerns from fans. The issue, however, is sustainability. While TV contracts fill league coffers now, TV networks base future deals on ratings. With viewership in decline, some fear that future contracts will shrink, affecting players' salaries and the league's bottom line. Unlike the NFL, which builds fan loyalty around teams, the NBA promotes its stars as the main attraction. But when fans follow players instead of teams, they switch their allegiances as players change teams. This trend has accelerated with the rise of player empowerment, where stars frequently change teams via trades or free agency. Fans aren't sticking with teams like they do in football, which could explain why NBA viewership struggles. This issue isn't just about basketball, it's a broader lesson about access, equity, and the future of opportunity. Here are the key takeaways. If the NBA wants to maintain its connection to low-income communities, it needs to reduce pay-to-play barriers. Programs like NBA Cares or initiatives to fund youth basketball could ensure that passion, not privilege, determines success. The NBA should revisit its youth development model. Instead of relying on AAU systems, the league could directly invest in free, community-based basketball programs to develop future talent. Part of what made past NBA players larger-than-life figures was the storytelling around their journeys. Instead of emphasizing their wealth or lavish lifestyle, the NBA should spotlight the struggles and development paths of its rising stars. The NBA must refocus marketing around teams, not just players. This might mean curbing player movement or encouraging longer player team commitments. The NFL thrives because fans root for their teams regardless of who's on the roster. The issues facing basketball mirror a larger crisis in youth sports. As every sport becomes more commercialized, the accessibility gap grows. Soccer, tennis, and even baseball have already seen their ranks dominated by wealthier participants. Basketball must be careful not to follow that path entirely. Basketball's shift from a community-driven pastime to a wealthy, exclusive pursuit is more than just a sports issue. It's a reflection of societal inequality. The NBA's greatest stars came from struggle, and that struggle fueled their greatness. Today, with access limited to those who can afford it, basketball risks losing its heart and soul. For low-income Black communities, this shift closes a door that was once seen as wide open. Without action, the NBA risks becoming a sport of privilege, detached from the very communities that made it great. But if the league and its partners address the pay-to-play model, it could reignite the passion, drive, and hunger that made basketball a global phenomenon. What do you think? Has basketball become a rich man's game? How should the NBA respond to this shift?